Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So welcome to all those here physically in the centre, and also to those watching online. Welcome to Conscious Living. So let's start off with our usual announcements. So this is the Sunday morning meeting at Conscious Living Spiritist Group. We're a non-for-profit organisation focused on the study and dissemination of the Spiritist philosophy. Our main goal is to empower humanity, one heart at a time, through the message of immortality and love, as taught by Christ, our brother and higher model. Our key practice is charity as love in action, experienced through brotherhood and connection. Connection is the path to enlightenment. It encompasses connection with oneself, others, and through each other to God. God is yet to be fully understood, but remains the primary principle and the highest source of all that is. So, welcome again, and we're going to start off with a few announcements. This is a website, spiritistinstitute.org, and we've just started up a new weekly, is it weekly or monthly newsletter, so you can keep abreast of events that are happening, not just here, but around. It's international as well, right? So again, spiritistinstitute.org is the website. This is another really well done source of information on Spiritism. It's actually done in a format of almost like cartoon-like, but very creative. And so far there's about, I think, a dozen studies. It covers about the first maybe 20%, 25% of the Spiritist book. Really good source of information, particularly for those who never know nothing about Spiritism. Just to give you some example of the way it's set up. Again, there is a certain sequence of lectures, classes, with visual support as well. And also there's access to the books in Spiritism in PDF format, so you can access all the 6 books, including What is Spiritism, free, and again available for downloading or whatever you want to do. So again, a great resource. As usual, just a reminder on the courses we have in English. Spirits Review, 2nd and 4th Wednesday of every month. A lot of material on the Spirits Review, so a lot of supporting stuff that we tend to don't find in just the 6 codification books, goes a lot deeper. And then on Sunday mornings we have our Zoom class. Today we had 16 of us. Really, very good dynamic group. A lot of conversation. We're studying Genesis. We're about 80% through the book now, but it's still ongoing. So if you want to join, 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Not everybody's favourite hour to be studying Genesis, but and historically the reason was we used to do this class before the 11 o'clock meeting in person. Then when COVID happened, we went online, and then we opened up again here, and we were to get here for 10 o'clock. For 11 o'clock, we have to start at 9. So we can. And in fact, the group is from all over the world. We've got the Philippines and from Spain, and over quite a few places in the US as well. So it's a very dynamic group. And then on a Wednesday at 9 o'clock in the evening, which might be more comfortable time for some, we have the study of the realms of mediumship with Carlos Babuki. Okay. So with that said, I'll just read this short message from the book Happy Lives, psychographed by Devoda Franco from the Spirit Joiner de Angelis. This is number 47. It goes as follows. Follow the course of events without apprehension. Neither your anxiety nor fear will alter the course of time. Wait for what is to come without suffering of anticipation. What you expect to happen might actually happen, though not in the way you had envisioned. For life follows a plan of incessant changes and transformations. So wait within a harmony, without agitation and dread. It's interesting because so much of the time we suffer thinking about what could happen, what bad things could happen. Is that hurricane going to come across Miami? And often we suffered far more than that the event actually became a reality, shall we say. So I think the message here is, you know, we control the future, right? Our thoughts and our fears can help or hinder our path in life. So it's a very nice reminder, again, to be positive and expect changes, this world we're living in today, incessant changes and transformations. So with that said, I'd like to ask you to just join me. You go to the lights. Just an opening prayer. So, our dear Father, Master Jesus, and all the good spirits that are here, in the centre with us, and with you at home, watching this either now or in the future. Be with us, helping us open our minds, our hearts to the message of today. We're so grateful for this opportunity to be together, to connect, not just amongst the incarnates, but also our supporting angels, guardian angels, who guide us, always there, helping us. We need to just make sure we keep that connection open and our hearts open. And especially today, we ask that the good spirits, the guidance spirit of our dear friend Sue, who will deliver the talk today, help her deliver with love, with understanding, with the intent that the message gets through to all of us so we can take it home, reflect on it, and again help us on our evolutionary journey. We thank you so much, and so be it.
So be it.
All right, so Sue. Okay, let me tell you about Sue.
What's Sue on the TV?
One of the founders of Conscious Living, born to a Spiritist family in Brazil. She's a doctor of physical therapy, married and mother of 2 teenagers, very challenging. Fun fact, Suzana has evolved from killing plants to gardening every Saturday, not caring for dogs, having 2 of her own. Okay, with that message, it's over to you, Sue. Thank you.
A little slow start for today. Let's go over here then. Okay, I guess I'll use this because the PowerPoint's not open. What's this? Okay, here it is. Let me see if I can do this.
What if you click it on, isn't that the PowerPoint icon in the bottom there, the bottom bar? Yeah, next to that. Next to that.
It's okay. I was trying to open on the PowerPoint mode. We'll use this mode, I guess, because I'm not, the PowerPoint for some reason is not opening. Okay. All right, not a problem. So good morning, everyone. Good morning to everyone who is following us online. Today, our topic is the silent epidemic, shame, mental health, and suicide, a call for help. So I decided to do this topic because we are in September, the last week of September. In September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. We have Suicide Prevention Day, which is September 10th. And in Brazil, there is a big movement, awareness movement around suicide called Yellow September. And it is one of the biggest awareness movements that works to kind of bring attention to the stigma that exists around suicide. So we're going to look a little bit about the statistics, because sometimes it just feels that it's something that we hear about it, but it's very far away from us. It's not necessarily in our families, or, you know, it's not really part of our daily lives. It's someone else's family dealing with that, or someone else's friends or community. But the numbers say differently. It is very likely that all of us have know someone who has thought about committing suicide, attempted to commit suicide, and we may not know. So Brazil, we have about 14,000 cases a year, or 38 persons daily. The statistics by the World Health Organization say that there is a decrease in number of suicides in many parts of the world, but not in the Americas. So it pertains very much to us here in the United States, and also the whole North and South America. So here's some statistics about suicide here in the United States. So just to give you an idea, this is 2021. So 12.3 million adults seriously thought about suicide. And we know that these numbers are not the real numbers, right? So this is what the research discloses, but there are probably much higher numbers. We have 3.5 million people who actually made a plan to commit suicide, and 1.7 million adults committed suicide. So in the US, we had 48,183 people who died by suicide in the year of 2021, representing one death every 11 minutes. Still into the statistics, the World Health Organization talks about 700 suicides per day, and it's the fourth leading cause of death for a very, very young population. So our teenagers, 15-year-old, my son and daughter, 13 and 14. So it's scary to think that our youth is actually committing suicide at these high rates. And when we look at mental health, most suicides are related to mental health disorders that either have not been diagnosed or have been mistreated, incorrectly treated. So why is that so relevant? Because if it is, most cases are related to that, these are lives that we could have been saved. Once, if they were properly diagnosed, and two, if they were properly treated. So there is a lot more that we can do to help diminish these numbers. So mental health has also a huge impact on everyday life, on productivity. So in Brazil, for instance, in 2022, more than 209,000 people had to take breaks from work due to mental health issues. Whereas when we look at the world, 12 billion of working days are missed annually due to depression and anxiety, costing about $1 trillion of revenue. So it's a pretty massive impact that we have because of mental health issues in our society. Now, there has been a 13% rise in mental health and substance abuse in the last decade, up to 2017. 1 of 5 people live with disability related to mental health. 20% of the world's children and adolescents have a mental health condition. The most common mental health disorders are depression and anxiety. And the global median of government health expenditure is less than 2%. So we have a major crisis. We have a problem that is everywhere, and the majority of the population will experience some sort of mental health issue sooner or later in their lives, and our investment in mental health remains very small. But on the good side of things, we do have mental health awareness working, institutions, organizations, people trying to bring attention to decrease discrimination and, most importantly, to decrease the stigma around mental health and also around suicide. Another thing that is helping with awareness and the stigma is high-profile cases that, are helping us to see that, it's everywhere, whether you have resources, whether you're rich, whether you're famous. I mean, we are all very vulnerable. Incredibly, the advertisement on medication also brings it to our TVs and to social media that there is a problem going on, and COVID certainly had an impact in bringing mental health also to kind of giving visibility to mental health issues. So with these stats in mind, like I said, one of the big works that has been done is around the stigma with mental health and with suicide. And so when we look at the definition of stigma, stigma is a negative and often unfair social attitude attached to a person or group, often placing shame on them for a perceived deficiency or difference to their existence. Stigma is based on the perception that others will judge you as being inadequate or not having done enough, and it keeps people from opening and seeking help. So that is a barrier for people to reach out, for people to speak up, for people to look for help. When you are stigmatized and you are so incredibly ashamed of your condition, then the last thing that you want to do is to bring it to anyone's attention. You might rather die, literally. And that is why stigma and shame do kill. And this is where, whether we are a healthcare worker or not, we all have a part to play, because we are all contributing to stigma around those issues. And we all live in a culture of shame where on a daily basis we shame one another. And we're going to get to that. Shame is part of our routine together with judgment. So the effects of stigma can include internalization of negative beliefs. So you start to believe that you truly are flawed. There's something truly, essentially wrong with who you are. And that leads to social isolation, to low self-esteem, to hopelessness, to shame, which kind of embraces all of the above aspects. And that, again, becomes a significant barrier to avoiding treatment. I don't want to go to my doctor and talk about it and get his judgmental reaction, or talk to my friend who's going to say to me, but why are you experiencing all those things? You have so much, you live in so much abundance, you should be grateful. That is telling the person, you are crazy, I have no idea where you're coming from, and your state of mind makes no sense whatsoever. So the person just wants to go back to the hole and continue to believe that she is. The thing with shame is that when we feel shame, we are convinced that we deserve shame. And we all have experienced shame in our lives. So I want to bring the topic of shame because shame is killing people. So what the campaigns do is they create hope through action. So that's the World Health Organization campaign. That's the theme of the campaign from 2021 to 2023. And so that's what this lecture is also about, inviting everyone to take action, and we're going to see how we can do that. And in 2023, the campaign this year in Brazil was ask for help if you need. So encourage people to step out of their holes and ask for help. But there is this gap, right? In between the awareness and the consciousness that I need help and the ability to get help. And people are in the hole. So our action is, we cannot pull them out of the hole. They have a work to do on their own, but we can throw the ladder, right? And we're going to see how we can do that to help them, to give them the means to climb out of that hole. So here's a pamphlet by the World Health Organization, and kind of educating about the statistics, the numbers I show you, the 700,000 people, the fourth cause of suicide among 15 to 29 years of age, and then they have this life kind of action plan where L stands for limit access to means of suicide, I stands for interact with the media on responsible reporting. In other words, yes, we need to talk about suicide, and no, we shouldn't be marketing how people commit suicide. So that's a responsible way of addressing, because we need to talk about it without encouraging it. But what I want to highlight in this life action plan is foster skill of young people. And I would expand that to foster humanity skills with living, and early identification and support everyone afflicted. And again, this is where we can play a big role. So let's go a little deeper into shame. Since shame is the barrier, let's understand a little bit about shame. And all the material that I'm bringing come from the work of Brené Brown in her book about shame. The title is, I Thought It Was Just Me. I think that's the title. And anyway, there she highlights how shame has a role in mental health disorders like eating disorders, depression, anxiety, addiction, violence, sexual assault. And how many studies have actually identified shame as the dominant emotion experienced by mental health clients, more than anger, fear, grief, and anxiety. So it's a very core emotion. Again, it's something that everybody experiences, and I really felt like I want to talk about it because when I was thinking about the Spiritist movement and how the Spiritist movement has evolved from talking about selfishness and pride in such a black and white way to today recognizing that selfishness and pride are very superficial symptoms of issues. They are much deeper, emotional issues. And so today we talk about anger, we talk about scarcity, we talk about jealousy and fear and the human frailty, the emotion, the frailty of the human psyche that leads us to take some behaviors that are defensive in nature. So we have definitely advanced in that way, but yet, to my knowledge, and maybe there is someone out there doing this work, it's very possible, but from what I have seen, I have yet to find someone that has spoken or addressed the issue of shame in the lectures. And in thinking about this September and closing the month of September, I felt like the urge to talk about it, because the more I thought about it, the more I identified shame in my own life. And I've been thinking about it, I've been processing about it, and I've been trying to be critically aware, which we're going to talk about, meaning not only identifying where shame is, but understanding where it comes from, what is it doing to me, and how can I better manage it. So when, how, and where do you experience shame in your life? That's a question for you. 10 seconds. So you can just start by saying this. Am I even aware of shame in my life? That's the first thing. Yes or no, right? Do you have a sense of where shame is present in your life? Okay, so here's some questions that can help you to think about shame. Are you ashamed of yourself or parts of yourself? Are you ashamed of your past? Would you reveal things that you did on your past to someone with a feeling of integrity and not feeling diminished by the things that you did? Are you ashamed of your family history, of your present family? Are you, parent, ashamed of your kids' behaviors? Maybe your kids are not the kids that are shown on the TV commercials. They all look super pretty, they behave super well. Or all the children who are on Facebook, they're all champions of something. Mm-hmm. They are all beautiful. They're all winning games, right? And my children is struggling with addiction, is struggling with attention deficit disorder. It's not doing well in school. Am I ashamed of that? Because a lot of times how our kids behave and what they do speak about our own selves. Can I talk about where my kids stand without shame? Are you ashamed of your sexuality, of who you love or not? Are you ashamed of sex? Do you turn the lights on or keep the lights off? Are you ashamed of your body? Are you ashamed? Do you limit yourself because of shame? Do you limit your activities, your pleasure because of shame? Are you ashamed of your choices? We shame one another for anything and everything. A woman in our society who chooses not to have a child, she will be harshly judged by that decision.
Oh yeah.
Shame on you.
Oh yeah.
If you have one kid, why didn't you have more? If you're struggling with infertility, right? If you get divorced, if you're having trouble with your work, if you're not that successful entrepreneur, right? So there's so many ways that we feel shame and we shame one another. Body image, weight is a huge one. We're going to talk about that. You can also do an exercise and you can say, I would not like to be perceived as. And I posted that on my Instagram and got a few responses, and people say, us fat, us weak, right? Us ugly. So just answering this question might also cue you in areas where you feel shame. Now, understand that shame and self-esteem are two separate issues. So self-esteem is how you see yourself, your strengths and limitations over time. It's how you think of yourself. Whereas shame is an emotion. So when we are in shame, we cannot even think. We're in this like very foggy state of mind. We lose perspective of the big picture. We don't see any strengths. We don't see any possibilities. There is no hope. Shame is that place where all you is stuck in that certainty that you are flawed, undeserving, and you don't belong anywhere. I think this, okay, let me see here. Okay. Then shame is also different than embarrassment, guilt, and humiliation. Embarrassment is if I'm walking over here and I trip and I fall, yeah, or I'm doing that in the middle of the street, you feel slightly embarrassed, right? But it comes and goes. It doesn't define you. You're like a little embarrassed in that moment, but it passes. Now, guilt can be positive because it is when you are interfacing your behavior with your values. So let me give you a personal example. When I started having my first relationships with women, I didn't feel necessarily ashamed, not to as much as I can remember. But I'm working on this because I'm going back to see if shame was part of my experience at the moment. But I felt very guilty because I felt that I was doing something wrong, breaking God's laws. And so guilt was the permanent, the prevailing feeling that I had. But I don't think that I felt necessarily ashamed. I'm still investigating. Now, humiliation can be together with shame, but not necessarily, and it's not the same thing. So if you call out someone's attention in the group, and that person thinks that that was an undeserved call, he may be feeling humiliated, but not ashamed necessarily. But if you buy into the message that I'm passing on, then now you're going to also, you internalize that message, then now to humiliation, you're also going to feel shame. So just want to make sure that we understand that those are different things. So how do we define shame? Shame is an intensively painful feeling or experience of believing we are flawed and therefore unworthy of acceptance and belonging. Now, what is the primary human need? When we are born, what we bring within ourselves is the need for what? Love, acceptance, and belonging. Mm-hmm. So this is how hurtful this is. How harmful shame is to who we are. When we are shamed, we are limited in our authenticity, in our ability to be who we are, because we are so scared of other people's judgment, rejection, and that we are not going to be accepted, we're not going to belong in that group. And we must belong because we're wired to connect with one another, and that is what helps us to survive the day-to-day. So you can see, if you have the idea that you're going to be rejected or seen as flawed, less than perfect, you will hide in shame for survival. You want to disappear, you want to stay in that hole and not put your head out for anything, not even for help. So if you can relate to an experience of shame, you might relate to some of these words. Feeling an outsider, feeling rejected, feeling alone, flawed, exposed, or self-loathing. So shame is the silence epidemic that runs underground because no one wants to talk about it, because even sometimes we feel a little shame to talk about shame, and so it's that difficult, right? So it's the silence epidemic, affects us all, what makes it silent is our inability or unwillingness to talk about it and how it affects our lives. And the byproducts of shame are then fear, blame. We are fearful of rejection. We tend to blame others, and we disconnect. We isolate, which creates this very rich environment to hurt yourself or to commit suicide. Now, one thing that's really interesting about shame is, how do we solve shame? I cannot solve shame by myself, because shame is not something that is created from within. Shame is a serious social, relational problem. We need to resolve shame at a societal, community level. So, how is shame born? Shame is born from the expectations that our society and our community have on who, what, and how we should be. So, when we are born, we just want to be ourselves, right? But then society comes up with all these expectations, and we spend most of our lives trying to meet them. And the experience is always going to be negative because the expectations from society is that we are perfect. Since we're never perfect, we're always going to be on a downhill. We're never going to be winning, right? So it's social and relational. Let's understand how that works. So Brené Brown talks about the shame web. On the outside of the web, you have the media, television, social media, movies. It's the outside of the web. On the middle of the web, you are going to have your co-workers, your spiritual groups, and all the groups in which you are immersed. And in the inner side of the web, you have yourself, you have your family, and you have your close friends. When shame happens from the very close circle in the web, it becomes even more hurtful, right? So think about, and I was talking to a friend of mine that when he saw that I was going to talk about shame, he says, "All right, let's talk about shame." And he said, I experienced shame very early on because he's gay, and his father would say out loud in the home, "A son of mine will never be gay." So he grew up with this message, so he had to do a lot of inner work to deal with that message, that shaming message. So much of the way we educate our children is through shame. Unfortunately. And that is something that I do like any other parent, and I have been working very hard to try not to shame my children and to try to start a different way of educating and conversing with our children. So there is the shame web, and one of the most shaming items in our society has to do with body image and weight. So the way we can develop critical awareness, which is one of the steps that help us to build resilience in dealing with shame. We build resilience by doing that little exercise that I show you, identifying what is shame. Then critical awareness, understanding how that came about. So what are the social expectations for appearance? How do these expectations work? Who benefits from these expectations? So, I don't think this is gonna play. Okay. Let me see something here. Let me see if I can play it here. I'm not gonna try to open it, but here I have it. Okay, let's see. Computer's giving me a lot of trouble today. I'm going to try to reopen this. Let's see. Let's wait 1 second. Opening PowerPoint for the web. There's some hope here. Let's see.
Don't be ashamed, okay?
And there. Okay, making progress. Oh my goodness. Okay. Right here. Let me try this. Ah, there it is. Okay, let's see. So, I'll try to get to the... So this is the lady, right? This is what she looks like. This is who she is. And we're gonna look at her evolution here. By the way, this is a commercial by Dove. Dove had a campaign in 2004 about awareness on beauty, and this is what she looks like. Now comes the computer. This is it. This is what we want it to look like every day when we leave our homes. This beautiful lady. This is our society's idea of taking part in the Dove Real Beauty Workshop for girls. They have many videos. If you go and you put on YouTube Dove's beauty campaign, you're gonna see that. They have like different experiments where they had this one here with the sketches. It's really interesting. It's like you describe yourself, the guy is not seeing you, he draws you, and then someone else describes you. And then they put the description side by side, and it's amazing because the way people see you, they see much more beauty in you than you see in yourself. They have another video with two doors. One door says beautiful, the other door says normal. And a whole bunch of women going through those doors of a commercial building, and the vast majority goes through the normal. They don't see themselves as beauty. Of course, because this is the standard of beauty. I showed it to my daughter and I said, look, this is fake. This is not real. And she looked at me and she says, I know, Mommy. Okay, good. I'm glad to know. Okay, so if you go back here, so what are the social expectations? How do these expectations work and who benefits from it? Approximately 7 million of girls suffer from eating disorders, talking about mental health. Up to 19% of college-age women are bulimic. Eating disorders are the third most common chronic illness among females. Very young girls are going on diets because they think they are fat and unattractive. The single largest group of high school students considering or attempting suicide are girls who feel they are overweight. 25 years ago, top models and beauty queens weighed only 8% less than the average woman. Today, they weigh 23% less. Among women over 18 looking at themselves in the mirror, research indicates that at least 80% are unhappy with what they see. Many will not even be seeing an accurate reflection. So I was talking to my daughter another day, and she does take medication to help with focusing. And she was struggling, and I said that, sweetie, why don't you go back and take the medication? And she looked at me and she said, Mommy, the medication takes my hunger away, and I like eating. And I'm like, holy cow, this kid is so much healthier than I am, right? Something to learn. I say it and I'm still like affected by, and she has said some other things to me that I'm like, gee, let me listen to this 14-year-old girl who is showing such a strength and such a strong self-esteem, and who sings and looks at herself and says, Mommy, I'm so beautiful, and it's just like, it's so refreshing, especially in face of this craziness, right? And which one of us has not experienced something like that? I remember younger, like being with friends, and friends going to swim and just feeling so self-conscious that not wanting to take my clothes off, being bathing suit, being a two-piece. So many of us get to a certain age that we say, no longer two-piece. Now it has to be a one-piece because this body is no longer good enough. And we do live in a society where the people closest to you will be looking at you. I have heard this so many times. How does she dare to show that body? But I say it and I feel pain. I feel pain. Because the person who is saying that, she too, or he too, is full of shame. And when you see someone exposing themselves in a certain way, it hurts inside in such a way that you must attack, you must protect. Mm-hmm. So when we're dealing with shame, either we are going to hide, we are going to approach and try to please as much as possible, even to the point of violating our own boundaries, healthy boundaries, or we are going to attack. So much violence comes from people become dangerously violent when they are feeling deeply ashamed. There is a scene in the movie Capote where the guy enters the house, it's an excellent movie by the way if you have not seen, to rob the family. But there is a moment in the robbery that he is so ashamed by what he is doing, he's met with so much compassion, he can't stand the shame, so he kills. He kills. And if you think about fights and violence, you can see how people can feel so deeply diminished and ashamed that they need to hurt to survive, because it's excruciating, painful. Who benefits from that? The beauty industry. Who is making money on our misery? 38 billion hair industry, 33 billion diet industry, 24 billion skincare industry, 18 billion makeup industry, 15 billion perfume, 13 billion cosmetic industry. So when we look at those things, right, that is critical awareness, is understanding, not only I identify my shame, but I understand the industry, the society, the expectations that can never be met. After I read this and I start thinking about it, I've been working on my own shame, trying to redefine beauty within my own mind. Because this is ill. This is sick, right? So if you take that to mental health and spirituality, so what are the group expectations for mental health? The religious group's expectations for mental health. And how do these expectations work? Who benefits from these expectations? Same questions, different exercise. So the spiritual community expects that if you're here listening to me and you know a little bit about Kardec and all the work, you should be strong, resilient, faithful, together, spiritualized, perfect, happy, grateful, abundant, and have hopefully a perfect, very well educated and spiritualized family. Right? The community at large expects you to be happy, together, centered, pretty, stable, healthy, enjoying life, traveling, and etc. A pastor in Brazil put on Instagram, I saw that yesterday or the day before, there is in the religious movement a denial about depression, as if faith in God could grant us full protection against it. However, every day we witness men and women of faith with depression and committing suicide. The mind gets sick like any other organ of the human body, requiring attention and care. So here we're starting to tap a little bit into our community. So a lot of times folks have difficulty asking for help in the religious community, in the spiritual centers, for fear. Shame is about fear of disconnection. When we experience shame, we are steeped in the fear of being ridiculed, diminished, or seen as flawed. You shouldn't be there anymore, you know so much. How is that even possible? What's wrong with you? Cheer up. We fear judgment, being exposed, reject, condemned, seen as not enough. We are afraid that we've exposed or revealed a part of us that jeopardizes our connection, of our worthiness, of acceptance. So we're excluded, right? So how do we handle shame? What can we do about it? Like I mentioned, usually we're going to either, the person who is in shame, try to escape, hide, or isolate, or try to approach and please without boundaries, or he or she will fight, be hostile and aggressive. Now, shame. Shame is something that if we would put in a petri dish and we add to shame secrets, judgment, and silence, it creates the perfect environment for it to flourish. So when addressing shame, what we want to add is empathy. Empathy will dissolve shame, okay? But the more we keep it for ourselves, the more we judge our own selves, the quiet we are, shame is happening. Shame is flourishing. Shame is really keeping us away. Now, who benefits from our silence and our isolation when we are immersed in shame in the religious arena? The spirits who are not interested in our evolution, right? The so-called obsessors, because as we keep in shame, as shame keep us apart, as shame keep us isolated, we become a much easier prey to their influence. Now look at the importance of all of us in here in addressing the issue of shame with empathy and with compassion. So, for the person who is experiencing shame, build resilience is about being aware of where shame is manifesting, developing critical awareness. We did the exercise of critical awareness with beauty. Reaching out and speaking and sharing your story, your feeling, your sentiment. It does take courage. Courage, the ability to speak one's mind by telling one's heart, right? Not the courage to kill, to destroy, to overcome, but to be yourself. The courage of be your authentic self. We also need to build a web of support. If we are immersed in a web of shame, we ought to create a web of support. A web of support is going to be your faith community, your colleagues, identifying friends and families that can be there for you. Sometimes, because we all immerse in shame, I have some friends that I can talk about some issues, some other friends that I can talk about other issues. Because if my shame issue is also my friend's, he or she may not be able to meet me with compassion and empathy because he too is in shame. So you have to have some key players that can sit with you and be compassionate. So you build a web of support. Now, compassion is your willingness to hear. You need to find someone who can sit with you and listen to your humanity without trying to change it, without trying to move you to a different place, who is able to bear the pain, the human. That is what psychologists do. But we can do too. We can develop this ability to just listen. I hear you. God, I hear your pain. It sounds really, really painful. You know what? Tell me more about it. What do we usually do? Oh, let me tell you. But think about this way. Think about the Spirit's book. Think about question 375. No. Please, stop. Stop. You're telling me that you're hurting. I want to hear about it. Tell me about your pain. Can you describe it? And if you don't understand and if you can't empathize because that is not your experience, you tell the person, listen, I've never been there. I really have a difficult time understanding what you feel. Explain to me what it is that you are feeling. This is compassionate listening. This is empathy. Even when we cannot, if we didn't have exactly that experience, we can search within ourselves and experience that yields to a similar emotion, feeling, and try to connect on that. Empathic listening does not focus on the circumstance, it focuses on the feeling. So that the person feels that the most important thing, she feels that she's not alone. In the world, with her pain, with her suffering, there is a heart there to hold her tight, who is non-judgmental, and she feels that she's not alone. A non-empathic listening is when the person starts to talk and you bring it to yourself, now you're telling your own story. Or you stack the deck, meaning you're competing for misery to see who is more miserable. Or you use at least statements. I'm telling you about the pain of seeing my son be an alcoholic. And the person who is listening say, well, at least he's not doing heavy drugs. You kill it. You just kill it. Because you miss the target altogether. You know? You're not seeing the person, you're not hearing, listening, the pain. That's where we need to connect. So when you use an at least statement, you shut down and you review your own discomfort. You cannot handle that. So for the person who is struggling, he or she needs to get the message out. So we approach and say, go ahead, I can hear this. This is truly hard, I'm hearing for you. And I just love what it does, right? As we talk, as we write, we deflate, so to speak. It becomes lighter, the feelings, and more bearable. Sometimes we can just say, it sounds like a really hard place, tell me more about it. I don't know what that feels like, help me to understand. And that's how we create empathy and connection. Don't give a lecture to someone who needs a hug. Sometimes we don't need to say anything. Sometimes we just need to hold that person tight, close to our hearts. Because a lot of times people say, oh, I don't know what to say. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. You just need to be there. Touch the hand. Give a compassionate look. And to close, my daughter sent this picture to me this morning from my very favorite church from all places I visited, which is a church in South Carolina in the top of the mountains. So you have these the benches like in a stand, and they look out in the mountains, and you have this massive cross right at the front. So she's there. She was there this morning. They were singing songs, and she sent me a little clip, and I said I'm going to put, she knows I love it, because the first time I entered this church, I started to cry because the energy, the beauty is so powerful. And I said I'm going to put in my presentation. Spiritism has a lot to say when it comes to all those things. In the issue of mental health, I want to tell you who is listening. We are all together on the same boat. All together on the same boat. We are in a planet that is a hospital because we do not have our mental psyche together. Here we are, spiritualists, completely entangled in this materialistic web of shame, like any other person out there. Our sense of worth and value remains deeply attached to the material, to the physical. We ought to come together and create a web of solidarity, understanding that we are not different from one another. We are all spiritually ill. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. If I could joke and say, we're crazy. What are we doing? What are we doing? How is the concepts of immortality truly driving our lives, our sense of beauty, our sense of self, of worth? It does not matter what your darkness is or what your struggle is. You are a child of God, your divine filiation. God loves you. You belong no matter what. There is a place for you in this universe, and this place is not threatened by your crisis, by your disconnection, because although we are disconnected, God is always connected to us. And our place is never ever threatened. And the law of progress tells us that everything is okay. Because if God meant to create us finished and perfect, God would have done it this way. So no matter what your struggle is, you are loved. And we need to come down from the pedestals where we stand and meet one another in our humanity and be able to compassionate and empathically listen to one another, give our hand, pull one another from the hole of shame, so that we can together choose to live, to thrive, to heal, and to love. And this is today's message. In the church, on the top of the church is written, I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. When we lift our eyes to the hills and set our hopes higher than our eyesight, the Lord comes into view. He's above our challenges and pain, yet He personally resides within us, drawing us close, whispering to our hurting hearts. So may the Lord be with us, blessing us, and gives us the strength to move on.
Thank you, Sue. That was a very powerful message. It resonated on many different levels with me, and I hope also with you and everyone watching. Okay, so we'll come on to the second part of our meeting today. Let me just which is the passes. You can turn off the light and ask the passengers to take the positions. And for all those watching online, if you want to stay with us, be welcome. Maybe a time of meditation and reflection. So quickly, let's do an opening prayer just to prepare ourselves to receive the good energies that are here with us, the good spirits that are here, helping us, guiding us. So let us receive this energy, the true love and openness. And so be it. the end of our meeting today, let's do our final closing prayer. And as always, expressing our gratitude for this opportunity, for this life, this opportunity to learn, to face up to the challenges, helping us improve, helping us evolve morally, our feelings towards all the rest of humankind. The message today sensitizes us to the need to address other people, not judge other people, but to help. So many people in this world today are suffering, be it through economic challenges, through climate, and through many times just human hatred that is manifesting itself in this time of regeneration. As Sue said, we're all here to suffer, to help us learn. Because through the pain, through the suffering, we grow. This is what God wants for us. His love is always with us. So again, to close, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. Help us reflect on the messages today. Help us guide us in the days to come. So be it. Okay, everyone.